Our problems in relation to gambling started before we actually met. I think I've been a gambler all my life, and I brought that into our relationship. And I thought maybe that wasn't a problem, maybe I could control it, and maybe it didn't actually matter too much.
I think I always knew there was a problem, but I didn't realise to what extent gambling was a problem. And even then, when we did get married, I kind of thought I could change that I could stop your gambling.
And I guess as I've perceived the gambling to be a problem or an issue between us, I did my best to cover it up so that Katrina wouldn't find out I was gambling, and that seemed the best way for me to deal with the problem, as just to kind of hide it from Katrina and not let it be an issue between us.
I always had a sense that you weren't telling me the truth, or that you were hiding something from me, but I didn't actually know what it was.
Gamblers are very good at lying because they kind of lie to themselves in terms of how they're managing the situation and feel very much in control. And that kind of lying, it kind of grew, and the sense of distrust between us, so that every issue that caused an argument between us, I thought Katrina was getting at me because of my gambling, even though I didn't think that she'd found out about it. So there was a very negative emotions at that stage.
It was definitely a negative spiral downwards, I think. With all the secrecy and the lying, I kind of looked for something because I thought something was going on. So I started to try and find out what was wrong. And when I found out, I found some evidence of gambling. It just all seemed to fit into place. I suddenly realised that this wasn't just a flutter, particularly with all the secrecy that had led up to it. I thought this is a big problem, and I didn't actually realise how big a problem it was until, and even when I did face you about it, you still tried to lie out of it. You know, it's just there had to come. The breaking point for you, I think, was when you had to stop lying, I think.
Yeah, and I guess even up to the last minute, I thought I was just one win away from making everything better again, you know, and I think we kid ourselves that we can gain back all that we've lost and more, and that people will be happy for having that extra money in it, kind of. So it was very much a case of trying to cover up the extent of how badly in debt we were, while at the same time trying to find time to keep on gambling in order to recover the losses.
Yeah, and I think at that point, I couldn't understand what was going on. I did realise the huge amount of debt, and obviously we've got 3 children, and so my way of dealing with it at the time was to break up the relationship. I felt that was the end, that it was divorce on the cards. I had to try and safeguard myself and the 3 kids, and so removed us from your gambling equation, really.
Yeah, and I think it was that moment, that kind of realisation for me that I'd lost everything in terms of family. It wasn't just financial now. It was I'd basically lost my whole family at that stage, and that was something I could never win back. And that was really the stimulus for me to go out and seek help, because I had to confront myself and basically, you know, appreciate that I had a problem and that I needed help with it. I think you don't really understand what it's like to be addicted to gambling.
I don't think I can ever understand. You know, I've never had that compulsion to gamble. So I think unless you've actually been there, I will never have a full understanding for that, and I need to accept that that's just the way it is. Yeah.
And so that was a long process for me, and it was very much one day at a time, just keep going. I was at that stage, we were living apart, and I was trying to keep my job as well as attending these sessions. But it improved, and I kind of gave up trying to defend my actions. I mean, I had to accept that the problems that we had in our relationship were down to my own actions, and taking responsibility for that was a big step.
it's quite remarkable how gambling can have such an effect on somebody's personality, because I think so much of your anxiety and stress in our relationship was caused by gambling. So through time I saw this all changing in you, I think that from the point of giving up gambling, things only got positive in terms of our ability to communicate with each other. And I think when we did get back together again, the hardest thing for me was to trust you. And there were one thing that the gambling did leave us with in a relationship was the feeling of distrust. And it goes a lot deeper than just, the financial distrust. I think if you distrust somebody in one area, that you distrust them in a lot of other areas. And we gradually worked through that. And I think, me getting support for that as well was important through my friends and family.
So it was a very long process, and I encouraged Katrina to find out about gambling, to understand a bit about it, and also to take an interest in our finances and made sure that she had absolutely open access to bank accounts, credit card details, and knew exactly the situation that we were in. And it was tough because it meant we had to go without. We couldn't take the kids on holiday because we were still paying off the debt that had been accrued over such a long period of time. And there was possibly a bit of resentment in there at things that we were missing out on.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of anger there initially that we had to overcome, or especially I had to overcome. Like you said, there were things that as a family we needed but couldn't have, and we did have this huge debt that just wasn't going to go away until we sold our house. So that was it took a while to get over that anger and that distrust.
Yeah, so that's been 5 years now that I haven't gambled. And I think there's a number of things which have contributed to keeping me on the straight and narrow. For me personally, I still think of myself as a gambler, and that's a very that's what stops me from even doing. I don't do anything gambling related. I won't buy a lottery ticket. I won't buy a raffle ticket, and I have to completely isolate myself from gambling because I feel that within me that urge might still be there, and I really, having lost my family once, I just don't want to go there again.
It was important for me to realise that gambling wasn't really a choice that you made so much as it was a real addiction. I struggled to understand that, but once I understood that it was an addiction that controlled you, it's much easier for me to deal with what happened and appreciate that it is a recovery process, and appreciate that that's always still there. So I am very aware of what other people don't see as gambling can trigger the feeling within you, and therefore I do try and shelter you from it and not put that temptation there.
It's meant that we've grown together because we've had to work together to overcome this problem, and I rely on your support on a daily basis.
And I rely on your honesty. So the honesty within our relationship, without the lying and everything's really, really important.
Yeah.